and gentlemen, you probably heard I just knocked some stuff around on my desk. Hi, it's good to see you again. Hope you looked at the video last week. It was all about Chapter 1 and your introduction to critical thinking. I would like for you to know that anytime you have a question, you can email me and I will try to get back to you as quickly as possible. You can always call me in my office at 252-493-7482. Leave a message if I'm not here. This is my office we're in right now. I'm in the A.B. Whitley building, room 207. Also, I'd like to mention that when we have tests, and they're listed on your schedule in the syllabus, when we have a test, you will need to take good notes. Often I will go over parts of the chapters on videos, and my notes will have parts of the chapters in, but you are ultimately responsible for reading the entire chapter and making notes yourself. Please make good notes. I would suggest that you make notes that are short fragments instead of long sentences. I would suggest that you color code them or put them in small bulleted lists so you can find the information quickly. When I give a test, it is timed. You will not have time to flip through the pages of the book. You need to be able to go to notes. And after all, isn't that what you'll be doing on a job? Making notes. That's why I don't require people in my class to memorize anything. You need to be able to take good notes so you can go to them when you need them. It will help you out in your job. And it will definitely help you out in this class. A critical thinker is a philosopher. That's kind of what you would like to become, a philosopher of different things in life. A philosopher is one who thinks about thinking and tries to find a better way of thinking. A philosopher is someone who questions, not judges, but questions different ways of thinking. The original thinker was Socrates back in Athens. Socrates had the Socratic method. It was a way in which he taught young people who came to him to study a way to judge action, to judge other ways of thinking by asking questions, good analytical questions, questions that were then studied for their value, for their logic, for their worth. And determinations were made about if a certain way of doing thing or if a certain action or if a certain thought was valid and could be supported by reason and fact, or if it was not. Unfortunately, a lot of people in Athens, politicians or other thinkers or people who were in the religious circles, did not want to be questioned. They were not used to being questioned. Socrates got into a lot of trouble for his way of thinking. Today we know it was an excellent thing to do, but back then not so good for many people. In fact, Socrates in his 70s was given the choice of leaving Athens or being put to death. He chose death. He did not give up on his values. And we think of him today as the father of critical thinking and someone that we would try to emulate in our everyday life. I would like to mention, as you become a critical thinker, you will strive to become more knowledgeable and to try to make sense out of issues in a very complex world today. There's a lot of issues, and of course you cannot be knowledgeable on every single one, but you can have opinions and knowledge on major issues. For example, gun control is coming to the forefront now. We need to have good, solid reasons for believing what we believe. Same-sex marriage involves a great many people. Over 10% of America's population are gay or lesbian, and we need to determine our thoughts about the rights that are afforded to these people who are citizens in the United States. Illegal immigrants or immigrants in general, that issue causes a lot of talk in America today, and we would want to have an opinion on that. And then there are all sorts of issues that come about every day, normal everyday issues, that if you have a good solid way of thinking what you think and you have good reasons for believing what you believe, it will help you on the smaller issues, and it will help you in your everyday life, on a job, and with your family as you develop one. We also want to remember that when we critical think, we are not criticizing per se. When you do have a criticism, make sure it is a constructive one and not a destructive one. No one likes to be told they're wrong. You wouldn't like it. I don't like it. So therefore, don't tell other people that. You can examine how they think just as they can examine how you think. You should always be looking for the strong, supportive things. Remember, you're trying to make you a better critical thinker, not everybody else. We want to critical think with reason. Reason is the process of finding claims that support strongly our way of thinking. Reasons are what we base our arguments on what we base our debates on. Reason is what determines if we're good thinkers or weak thinkers. So we would all in this class we'll be looking for how to develop good reason. As a critical thinker, I would also like to point out that you need to read. You need to read. Smart people read. We don't read as much today as we did when we were younger. We need to. Remember when you were young and you learned how to read cat or dog, and someone came home, you got so excited to show them how you can read. In grade school, we had a reading contest. In grade school, we learned how to check out library books, and we got excited over that. What happened? Why don't we get excited over it anymore? There are tons of things out there to read. Don't ever be one who says, I don't like to read, or reading is boring. You might as well put a dunce cap on your head, because that's what people will think of you. Find something you like to read. You like mystery? Read mystery. You don't have to read the Wall Street Journal. You don't have to read something educationally loaded down with information. You can read whatever you want to read. Read the back of a can. Read porn. Read anything. Just read. It will make you a stronger and better thinker. You cannot go through life saying, I don't like to read. People will judge you for that. And there are certain reasons you do want to read. And they pretty much correspond with certain reasons that you want to become a good critical thinker. One is that you will become open-minded. You will always want to see another person's point of view. That will only make your point of view stronger. It will only make you more knowledgeable in a certain area. You will want to become mentally active. When you're mentally active, your brain works. We need not to settle in a rut or to let our thoughts become mundane. We always need to look at another side in order to become a more well-rounded thinker. By critically thinking, we will become more curious. We will seek out things that maybe we've only heard about, or things that we have just a fleeting knowledge of. You can't be curious about everything in the world. You can't research everything in the world. But many people right now fail to realize that they have curiosity about certain things. When I was younger, I was curious about ghosts. I was curious about aliens. I was curious about the Bermuda Triangle. And while I still am interested in some of those things, I have developed a more sophisticated way of thinking now, and I'm curious about more high-level things. Although, ghosts are still fun to study. We have a ghost club here at school. We have a paranormal club, which investigates sightings or spirits. So if you're interested, come on by and we'll hook you up with the ghost club here at school. They do some fantastic work. You will also become more insightful. You will develop a way of thinking about how other people think. You will become respected for your way of thinking, because people will come to recognize you as someone who doesn't criticize and judge, but as someone who tries to look at all sides of an issue. You will become creative. You will become passionate, and that passion puts spice in your life. Find out what you're passionate about. I'm passionate about animals. I like animals, and I like to be an animal activist. Other people like kids. Other people like to work with older people. Other people like to help out with homeless shelters. Other people like to help out with people who are sick or who have a specific illness that critical thinkers can help out with. Find what your passion is, and you know what? That will fill some of that empty spot in your life. Ultimately, as a critical thinker, we're trying to keep our thinking active. We're trying to get engaged with points in politics and other areas of interest in our life. We're trying to make good decisions and not just be told what to think or how to think. As a critical thinker, we learn to follow through with our commitments, and we make commitments because it is what defines us as a man or a woman in today's society. And we also learn to take responsibility for our own actions. We will, hopefully in this class, learn to explore. We'll learn to use our analytical skills in order to become a better critical thinker. In the book, in chapter 2, you will find out there are different types of questions that you can ask, and when you're trying to determine about a situation, there's questions of analysis, there's questions of interpretation, there are questions of fact. You will want to go over those because later on we'll be discussing these types of questions when I ask you to do certain exercises in the book or certain exercises I will tell you about. Also, as you move into chapter 9, we'll be talking about your morals and your ethics and your moral compasses. Please realize I'm not talking about your morals that come from religion. We're talking about just basic human morals that are right for everybody, no matter what religion you are. And it's good to have morals, and as you move into chapter 9, you will see questions such as, is there a God? Do other species exist on other planets? Do we believe in aliens? Is the death penalty wrong? Is abortion wrong in some cases? Is abortion right in other cases? Or is abortion always wrong? These are questions that are prevalent in today's society, and some of them are a little bit fluffier than others. Some of them are dead serious. Critical thinking will help you determine how you think about certain important issues like this. You've been told all your life how to think, from your parents to your preachers to your teachers. Books, television, music, movies, the computer, the internet, all has had an influence on how you think. So it's very important for you to develop a good, solid way of thinking and learn how to determine what is right and what is wrong. Sometimes our parents are wrong. Some of the thoughts my parents had were dead wrong. Some people of my family were very prejudiced, and I was raised in a very prejudiced society in which black people were thought of as second-class citizens. That was not right. I had to change the way that other people tried to influence me as I grew up. I still love these people, I still value these people, but I also know that some of their ways of thinking were dead wrong. As a critical thinker, I have to be able to acknowledge that. I have to be able to try to sort out why they think or why they thought the way that they thought. And I have to try to see how I can improve myself as a critical thinker above some of what I was taught. Now, much of what I was taught by my parents or my teacher was very good information and has made me into a very good, intelligent man today. But not all of that. And I suspect many of you are in the same boat yourself. As you move into, as you leave chapter 1, I do point out that I believe on page 81, there is a court case I would like for you to look at. It involves a young woman who killed her daughter, murdered her daughter, or let's say left her daughter to die. You will see some of the witness testimony against this young lady, and you'll see some of the testimony in favor of this young lady. You will also find that listed the lawyer's final arguments in the case. I would like for you to read these because I will be asking you your opinion about this trial coming up pretty soon, coming up next week. You will need to be able to discuss this intelligently with me and in a way that I will recognize that yes, you did actually read this. It's a pretty interesting case. Don't just scan through it, actually read it. I will point out certain things in the book that are not necessary to read, and I will point out some things that I think you will really enjoy, and I think you'll get into this, so please give it a good, honest read. As you move into chapter 9, there are certain questions that you will be forced to look at. Some questions such as, are we really responsible for people who are less fortunate than us? Should we eat meat? Now, you know I don't eat meat if you've looked at my little introduction part in the beginning of the course. I am a vegetarian. I cannot justify killing something else in order to satisfy me when I don't have to have it. But not all of you are vegetarian, and I have to be a critical thinker when I come to try to understand your way of thinking. So if you eat meat, I certainly don't think you're a bad person. It's just not for me. I have to know how I feel about an abortion, and you do too. You have to justify gun control and your opinion on it. Do you believe that we should ban semi-automatic weapons? Should we ban certain clips of magazines that hold a certain amount of bullets? Or should we not? We have to examine the Second Amendment. What about same-sex marriage? Is it okay to break tradition and allow people of the same sex to marry? Is that right? Is that wrong? Will it devalue our society? Will it devalue traditional marriage? You really need to try to understand how this issue can affect our history. I will try never to interject my opinion on something, because my opinion is just my opinion. If you want to know what my opinion is, then email me and ask me what I think about a certain issue, and I will tell you what I think. But my job is to try to help you, no matter what your opinion is, to develop strong reasons for having that opinion. Another issue that will be discussed in the book is pornography. That's a great issue to discuss. Prostitution and the legalization of prostitution, the legalization of marijuana in certain states now. We want to have a good opinion on those, and we'll be discussing those sometimes on the video, sometimes in the forum, sometimes in the book. There is a good little moral compass indicator on page 375 in the book that I will want you to look at. We have a system of thinking in America, and when it comes to making moral decisions, we usually base it on three things. One, on general principles, kind of like doing to others what you would have them doing to you. That's just common knowledge, common practice. Number two, on practical realizations, such as stealing is wrong, killing is wrong. We base a lot of our opinions on those. And third, there are some emotional feelings that we based a lot of our critical thinking on, such as, is euthanasia right or wrong? Is abortion right or wrong? Is same-sex marriage right or wrong? Your goal when you bring all these different aspects or reasons for thinking the way we do, your goal is to create a more refined system of thinking and let that guide you. Your book will mention certain things that people think about when it comes to making a decision. It lists 7 of them. It asks what would you do, how would you make a determination on a very important issue? And they list 7 of them. One is, I would do what is best for everyone. One is, I would follow the advice of an authority, such as a teacher, a preacher, or a parent. Some people say I would do whatever makes me happy. Some people say I would do what God and the scriptures tell me to do. Some people say I would do what would improve my own situation. Some people say I don't know what I would do at all. And some people say I would follow my conscience. Other people say I would do what's best for everyone. So looking at these individually, if you say I would follow my own conscience when it comes to making a good decision, that's good. I mean, your conscience usually tells you what's right or wrong, but your conscience was determined by people who influenced you as you grew up, by certain experiences you had and certain people you were around. If you were around intelligent, empathetic people who tried to see the good in everyone, or who tried to see both sides of an issue, then maybe your conscience is a good way. But what if you weren't raised in that environment? Would your conscience still be good? You have to make that determination. Some people say, I don't know what I would do. This is kind of an agnostic type of thinking. Have you not set standards? Have you not determined what your moral compass is? If you don't know what you would do, then maybe you need to start looking at what your standards are in order to help you determine. Some people say I would do whatever would improve my own situation. Well, this is known as ethical egoism. Um, what is right may be right for you, but it may not be right for everybody. You can't just think of how it would make your life better or your life more comfortable or if it's right for you. You have to determine what is right for everybody individually. If you say, I will do what God or the scriptures say is right, that's good also. Do realize, though, you're putting your value system in a supernatural being, or divinely inspired books or divinely inspired people, and that is good if that religion or that way of thinking is fair to everybody. All religions do not agree. That's why we have different religions. Religions used to be used for many unethical reasons also. Religion is good. Societies are built around and are made stronger by religions with an S on it, not just one. Keep in mind, though, many religions have been used to justify cruel, inhumane treatment of people. Religion was used by many people to justify slavery in the South. Religion was used by many people in the 1960s to deny African Americans civil liberties that we all enjoyed. Religion was used to deny women the chance to vote, the chance to own property, the chance to call their own shots. Religion was used to deny people the same and similar treatment as other people had. Religion's being used now to deny same-sex couples the same right that we all have. So sometimes religion is used as a very negative tool, when in fact it is a very positive part of society. People who say, I would do whatever made me happy, do whatever made me have pleasure. Well, this is good if it's good for everybody. You have to make sure that what's good for one is good for all. Some people say I would follow the advice of authority, such as a parent or a teacher. That's good also. Authority figures and role models are very important. I have my own role models, but I have to make certain that those role models are good critical thinkers, and I don't follow someone who has a flawed way of thinking that can get me into trouble. And some people say I would do what is right for everyone or for the most people who are involved in the situation. That's a good way of thinking. This is being altruistic. This is trying to keep the feelings and the viewpoints of your fellow man and your fellow woman in mind when you make your own decisions. So try to look over chapter 2 and look over the first part of chapter 9. I will be pulling it up again on a test. I would also like to mention that I read your form this week about the homeless fella standing on the street, and I learned some very interesting things. I have awarded some extra credit points that are listed on the Moodle site right now, and you can see who got those extra credit points this week. They gave me the most thorough and complete way of thinking, although I appreciate all of you answering right now. Some of you did make some comments, though. One person said, you never know what someone is going through. Some of these homeless people may not be proud of having to stand out there asking for money. Keep that in mind. That's a very good way of thinking. Always try to put yourself in the other person's shoes to determine how that person is feeling. Some people said, one person said, once I gave a man on the side of the road my Chick-fil-A sandwich, which he immediately ate because he was starving. I have also seen my friend give a homeless man a sandwich which he threw on the ground after we drove away. You can never really know if you can trust people or not, but I'd rather try to help someone who needs it than not do anything at all. Again, this is a good way of thinking. Try not to determine why that person threw that sandwich on the ground. They may indeed have been a con artist, or they may have just been embarrassed or ashamed or frustrated at the situation they were in. Some person said I would respond to this letter by first stating that this individual has a right to his or her own opinion. Yes, as upsetting as this statement was to some of you, this person in class did point out that that person who wrote that letter or had that opinion did indeed have the right to have that opinion. But that's where critical thinking comes in. Think if you had to walk a mile in someone else's shoes for a day, would you want someone to give you that glimmer of hope that came in the form of a spare dollar? Very nice way of thinking. I applaud you. Typically my heart starts racing a bit and I look the other way when I see a homeless person, and I hope that we don't make eye contact because I don't want to face the harsh reality of what I am looking at. Wow, that's good critical thinking on your part. When you acknowledge your own weaknesses or you acknowledge what makes you uncomfortable, then you can start to fix the problem or try to find a remedy. That's good critical thinking. One person said, I just can't trust to give them money because they may not spend it on food, they may spend it on cigarettes or liquor. And another person mentioned that the person asking for money had a cigarette in his mouth. Well, let me ask you this and maybe try to help you think a little bit more critically. In the book you're reading right now, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, the mother allows the daughter the luxury of pouring coffee down the drain because she realizes that it's important for that young girl to have something that she can waste. Sometimes when you look at a homeless person and you think about giving them money, and if you worry about they might spend it on cigarettes or a beer, really isn't that okay? Isn't it okay if a homeless person just needs a cigarette, or if a homeless person needs a can of beer because it makes them feel normal? If you're going to give someone a dollar, then give them a dollar. Give them a dollar without restrictions and without attitude. Give them a dollar and just let them do with it what they need to do with it. Just because a person is homeless, it doesn't mean he or she is not a good thinker. It doesn't mean he or she is willfully being homeless or willfully taking money under false pretenses. Sometimes they just want to feel normal. And sometimes that means a cigarette. Sometimes that means a can of beer. Sometimes it means a Diet Dr. Pepper if you need one. Hey, I gotta have Diet Dr. Pepper. Sometimes they might not want to buy food with it. So try to understand that when you think about what you might like to do to help a homeless person out. But again, ultimately, it's your job to become a better critical thinker, and I can only offer suggestions. So once again, read chapter 2, read part of chapter 9 that I have indicated. Look online, try to understand what a fallacy is, try to understand hasty generalization, which is, hasty generalization is of course when you base an opinion of a group on just the actions of one. For example, if I'm driving down the road and there's a lady ahead of me and she makes some not wise choices in driving, can I just automatically say, well, all women are bad drivers? No, that wouldn't make me a critical thinker at all. Or if a teenager pulls up beside of me and has a lot of tattoos or pants sagging or music blaring loud, should I then say, well, all those teenagers today, they need to? Well, no, that would make me a good critical thinker as well. That's what hasty generalization is. That's when we start to stereotype people, and that's what starts prejudice many times. So try to avoid hasty generalization. Look at my examples I've posted online. The second fallacy is false dilemma. That is the fallacy that says either or. Either you love America or you hate it. Either you're for this or you're against it. Well, no, nothing is ever really either or. There's always